ready?
Good. Thank you.
I want to call to order the Facilities Committee meeting, February 20th, 2019. Let me have an invocation, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. Father, we just thank you for the opportunity we have to serve the people of Glynn County. Guide us today as we hear about the various facilities in the county and growth projections and everything, and just help us to understand the needs and to be good stewards of the money that you've invested in this organization, and help us to always glorify you and be a shining light in this community. It's in Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
What I'd like to do is to move the Glynn County growth patterns up from discussion to be above the approval, so the presenter, Ms. Thompson, can go back to work at Glynn County. So at this time, we'll have Ms. Thompson make your presentation. We appreciate you coming.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm Pamela Thompson, the Director of Community Development for Glynn County, Georgia. I've been in that position since January of 2017. And one of the first things we had to tackle was the update of our comprehensive plan. It's required to be a qualified local government, and it's required to be updated every 10 years. And at this point, there had been a shift in the thinking and the desires of a lot of the residents of Glynn County for what vision they wanted for the next 20 years for Glynn County. So we went through a 15-month process, had town hall meetings, had a survey, had different opportunities for public input, had over 1,200 surveys submitted from all of Glynn County. And one of the main tools that comes out of the future land use, out of the comp plan, is the future land use map. And so what this does is based on input from citizens, based on growth patterns and desirable uses. You don't want to, have development so sprawled out that you can't necessarily serve it efficiently. We created a draft future land use map that was adopted by the Board of Commissioners in October of 2018. So I'm showing you this map now. It is available online, and you can look as far as the parcel layer. This future land use was a little different in that we did wind up going parcel by parcel. We had some discussion. There were some parcels that either showed all residential or all marsh when they were close to the coast, and so we went in and really were specific about making sure we marked the different parcels correctly as to what could be used and what couldn't use. So if it's okay with you all, I'm going to step to that map and show you some of the growth patterns.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, not the best color palette, I have to say, but that was picked by others. This right here tells you the legend for everything, and as you can see, now one item that came out of the comprehensive plan is we kept the same land uses, such as low-density residential, medium-density residential, but an action item from our comprehensive plan was actually look at those definitions. There was some concern from citizens that our different densities were still too dense for particular areas on the in Glynn County, most specifically on St. Simon's Island. So moving forward, the definition of what these are may change, but it is still the intent that low density is, of course, the lowest intense residential use up to high density residential. You've got public and institutional, and then your commercials go in intensity of use, industrial, conservation, and rural. These are the two colors that I think we'll discuss them today. To also update you, we actually just contracted with TSW. They're a consulting firm out of Atlanta, and they are about to begin the process of doing a comprehensive review and update of all of our land use regulations. So we're looking at our subdivision ordinance, our zoning ordinances, and everything that we require. And so looking at this, I think the two main things to look at on the mainland is the rural and the conservation. All of these areas have been designated as such. Some are areas already in protection by the state and federal government, and some are just large tracts of land that we believe we don't want to encourage development out of these areas, just because we already have all of our services, infrastructure, and utility in these areas. For residential in particular on the mainland, we're looking for growth still in the Harry Driggers corridor, the 99 Spur 25 corridor. We've had growth in that area, a little bit down Kate. We are hoping to have some redevelopment States area near the golf course and all that has some redevelopment there. And then keeping the commercial corridor kind of where it is, not really expanding that. This map is different than the last one because we used to not necessarily designate things such as FLETC. FLETC is a use, so we're making sure it's designated. The industrial park, the trade winds area, making sure that that's designated. And then as we move forward, we will do some small area plans. Like, for example, as you go along 17, you see some pretty heavy industrial uses next to residential neighborhoods. So just as those things start to develop or redevelop, we're gonna make sure there's some transition area and some compatibility in those uses. Then the green, of course, is all marshlands. And our goal is to protect our environment and make sure that we keep those as healthy as they can be. And then as you go across to the island, the goal here and kind of what's reflected on this map is to keep development where development already is. So encourage redevelopment of the commercial areas as they age, redevelopment of some of the older neighborhoods as they age, and then to really try to protect as much of the open and environmentally sensitive area as you can. So on the north part of the island, there was a lot of discussion to keep that low density residential, and then really kind of target all the growth, new growth to mid to South Island. So I think that's my overview, and then I'm happy to answer any questions and talk about what our next steps are or how this could potentially impact us working with y'all, because we have to work with you all. We have a requirement that new development has to hook up to the water and sewer system, and so we need to make sure that can happen, and we have a plan of working together moving forward.
Can you look at that, go from where 99 crosses I-95 up on the north end? Show me where that is. Up
Exit 42.
No, it's up further. It's up further.
This one. So this is exit 38.
Okay. And show me where 99 is. Go to the next exit. Okay.
Yeah, 42.
Okay.
And then here's the exit on
Yeah.
95. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and 99 comes off of that.
Yes, sir.
Just follow 99 over to where it hits 341, please, on the map.
It's 341. Okay, so it comes down here,
Yeah, okay.
and then this is where it hits
Spur.
Spur.
Spur. And then, is this 341?
That's 341.
Okay.
This is where it hits 341.
And all of that area in between that, what is that color?
This is low-density residential, this pale yellow. This mustardy-looking color is rural,
Right.
and then this kind of greeny color is conservation.
Okay, and the green is already in conservation.
Most of it.
Okay. Okay. So there's area above 99 too, between 99 and the spur extension over there, that is still low density development too, up above, up to right in there, yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And like these purples, that might look a little bit out of place, but that's existing uses, existing
Sawmill.
zoning, that kind of stuff. So, we didn't want to not acknowledge something that was there, even if it doesn't necessarily look like it fits in.
Can you help us understand the break point between like low and medium density residential?
I can, and with the caveat that I think that's probably gonna change.
Okay.
So, low-density residential is your R20 zoning, your R12 zoning, and the way our zoning works, R means residential. The number behind it is the minimum lot size in thousands. So, for example, high-density residential is R6, R9, which are 6,000 square foot lots, 9,000 square foot lots. Then we've got R9, R12, and then the lowest we have right now is R20, which is 20,000 square foot for a lot.
So that'd be a half an acre.
Yes, sir.
And that's what that light yellow is.
Yes, sir. That's all of this right here. And one thing from our comprehensive plan, there are character areas that we had to establish, and we set up kind of what we thought we needed to look at in the future in these character areas. And one thing that came up during conversations was that, you know, right now, your service area is the entire county, 424 square miles. That it might not make the best sense to set this as a service delivery area if it is low density, rural, or conservation, that there might be, that it would be worth looking at. Is there a possibility under certain conditions to offer septic tanks as a solution? We know there are environmental concerns and all that that would have to be addressed, but it was brought up as something to discuss with the consultants when we're going through the land use regulations update.
Yeah, the low density in rural areas, and I'll just call it for utility services, in my view, it's more practical to look at a distributed service offering as opposed to a central plant.
What's typically called a package plant or something like that, yes, sir. And I've seen that in communities where I work, where I've worked prior, but that's something that's going to be on discussion for the ordinance rewrite that we're going through right now.
In the community, the development plan, does it have population projections too?
It does, and I need to get those to you all. I wasn't able to get the most current updated ones before this meeting today. We actually, because of our size, we're part of a metropolitan planning area, and so we do a lot of transportation planning, and that's where we get our population trending and our socioeconomic data. And we actually are just updating that now, so that all will be finalized in March, and I will get that to you.
Who's doing that?
The RS&H out of Savannah, they are our consultant for our transportation planning.
Do you have a feel about what's going to happen in the next 5 years?
We are definitely still a county that's growing. Development-wise, we're seeing in-house that, especially the residential area, we are now building more new houses than pre-recession rates. So for us, it's back up to pre-recession levels.
Up to pre-recession or up to recession, beyond recession level?
No, so we were on a very steady increase of development before 2008, before the recession hit. And then we had a huge dip and kind of a pause, and then we started building back up for that. So we have not had permitting levels like 2006, 2007 until the past 2 years. We actually just caught up.
And how many units is that annually?
I apologize, I can call the office and get the countywide number. On the island, it's 120 homes.
Per year?
Per year, approximately. I will have to get you the mainland. It's more just because of the size.
Could you produce a map that has where the permits are being issued? So we have a permit map that would show the location, because I'm curious whether the growth is going in the south area or whether it's going into the mid area.
Yes, sir. And we do have pretty steady growth in the south, but, you know, the exit 29 area. But for the past couple of years, we just definitely had much more along the Harry Driggers area. I can get that for you, and actually we've been partnering with the Joint Water and Sewer for the last 6 to 9 months. Our electronic review software, we actually now track it by lift station for you all. So when Joint Water does the review of a new development, they put into the system which lift station is serving that, so that we can then print reports like that. So yes, sir, I can get you that.
So 120 per year on St. Simon's. How many do you think it is per year on the mainland?
I don't want to tell you for sure, but since you're letting me go back to work, I can actually,
Shoot us something.
I can send you something before the end of your meeting.
I'm going to say, Chairman Tennessee, that we've been seeing anywhere from 350 to about 450 new residential taps being sold
Annually and countywide.
countywide.
And that actually, because the number 329 is in my head, but before I confirm
So
it,
that's
about for the mainland, but I'll get that for you.
And do you know about how many is down on the south end and the rest is in the north end?
I can get that for you, 2 to 1, 2 up here in this area for every 1 down
Okay.
here. And those are approximate, but I can get you all of those numbers.
Are there any significant transportation corridors that may be new that would be in your forecast?
That's a really good question. We haven't really discussed that at this point. We're getting ready to update our long-range transportation plan through BATS. That's actually why they're collecting the population and the socioeconomic data. So this fall is actually when we're gonna have that conversation.
Okay.
At this point, there's no hot thing that everybody's talking about, but we will be looking at that.
Okay.
And let me say this, so this future land use is not zoning. All the land is still zoned, whatever it's zoned. And if somebody were to come in and be zoned properly to put a subdivision here, if they could meet all the requirements, right now, we couldn't tell them no. So what this is our guide for where to encourage development and where to not encourage development. So, once we go through, it's about a 20 to 24 month process to update these ordinances, so you're talking the end of 2020. We will then be able to give you a much clearer picture based on actual regulations of where we project growth to occur.
Do you expect that at that point, at the end of 2020, when the regs come out, that they'll do countywide zoning?
It's one of the tools in the toolbox. There are pros and cons to every tool. So far, in the initial discussions, both coming from the comp plan and in the initial ordinance discussion, a lot of people are talking about trying to decrease density on St. Simon's Island and preserve the natural environment, but not discouraging development on the mainland. So there's been some talk about an overlay district on the island, some different tools like that. There was discussion yesterday at our work session of impact fees for the island. But at this point, there has not been discussion on countywide rezoning. I think if that were to happen, it would more than likely start or only be on the island right now, just based on feedback. But I could not tell you that my board has an appetite for that, because
There's a lot.
not a lot of localities.
Yeah, I
like
understand.
that.
Are all of the houses permitted on the mainland, or are they gonna be on sewer,
Yes, sir.
where we currently have sewer?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The only subdivision that's come through since I've been here that got a variance was the reserve at, Jim Bishop brought it through, and there were supposed to be grinder pumps, but,
Yes, that's in the south.
That's on
okay.
the south, yeah.
So that right now has a variance until utility service is out there. But that's the only one. Everybody else is on sewer.
Okay. Any
Wait a
other
minute.
questions?
Everybody else is on septic tanks? Talk about south?
Well, no, so I might have been answering the question different. Every new building permit that comes in, that home is on sewer unless they're in that one neighborhood that had a variance.
Sorry.
Now, if you're on an existing septic tank, you can rebuild and maintain that existing septic tank, but all new development is on sewer.
Any other questions?
One other question. What is a good date for us to start our master plan, and we have full access to all the information that you're developing for what you're doing?
Well, as far as permitting and what I have in my electronic review software, you can get that at any time. Jimmy can just call me and I can run those reports at any time or for any time frame that you need. We can go back about 7 years. Right now, the fixed data that we have is from 2015. So my understanding is that's newer than what was used for the current master plan. So today I can get you 2015 data. The 2018 data will be, it's supposed to be to us from the consultant in March. So conservatively, I tell you by May, I'd probably have you finalize data for that.
Thank you.
So that data will be, you say, May?
Of this year, May of, yes, sir.
That's when we're getting updated population projections.
Yes, sir. Those are being worked on right now by our consultant.
And that'll be by, what do you call it?
Census block?
Census blocks?
Yes, sir. And what I can also do to, I can provide Jimmy and he can share with the board, there will be an MPO public meeting where they discuss that data or are able to answer questions about that data and explain what it means and how they got it, and we're happy to invite y'all to that. If y'all would just like to be part of, be part of listening to that from the consultant's mouth versus me, the middle person.
One other thought, Pam, in regards to the some of these low-density areas that are bounded by 95, 341, and then Georgia 32, for example, that's sort of north of the core of Brunswick. As you do your studies and down by census data by population, are you able to translate that into number of living units expected over a period of time or projected?
Yes, sir. There are two pieces of data you can use. You can just use the standard U.S. Census information, but then we can also, I'm gonna say can, we should be able to then use Glynn County specific data where we look at what is actually here and can refine that. So the answer is yes, we'll be able to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Appreciate you coming and making the presentation.
Okay,
Thank you.
and I'm happy
Big
to
help.
anytime. It sounds like I need to get you a map of where we issued permits, at least the area, if not by lift station. I need to get the number of mainland building permits issued last year. Were there any other deliverables I needed to
Just the
send?
map.
Okay, well, I wasn't sure if you had one, so I also had one dropped off.
I've got
here.
it.
So, anytime you need this, we can get this for you, and then if you go online, it's on our webpage, and I'll email this to you to get it on the website.
One other question, are we expecting any infill in Brunswick at all?
That's a good question. This is grayed out on this area. Our last 2008 comprehensive plan we did jointly with the city of Brunswick. This time they decided to do their own plan, and they're currently doing that right now. It is, the draft is available, but I would have to defer to that to see if there's any, to see what they're saying as far as infill. Now for us, some of these older neighborhoods, Arco, and even going up College Park and some of those neighborhoods, as those neighborhoods age, we would look to encourage reinvestment and redevelopment in those areas.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Pam.
Okay, we'll move to the approval items. The next item is a Wade Journey unsolicited proposal application.
Mr. Chairman, this is just a request by builder to enter into an agreement with us to expand the capacity out at lift station 4105. They're basically a production builder. They want to get capacity to go in and mass produce 41 homes. They've got the lots are out there at Saddlebrook, but they need capacity. The work we're doing right now with the Bergen Woods apartment complex will just give us enough capacity to meet their needs. This is a separate need. Looks like we've got some answers on what needs to be done there, but this is a request to allow staff to move forward to develop an unsolicited proposal with the Wade Journey folks. The one thing I'll point out while we talk about this, and I assume we're going to approve staff doing that, but there are a number of things going on in that area that are going to be affecting 4105. And as such, for this and for those other things that we're
Can you
talking,
show us on one of the maps where that is? Or do we have a map that shows us where that is?
let's see. Get my bearings. Is this the This is the no. This is the spur, right here. So you're talking about right here.
Okay,
This is the area that we're seeing all the growth right now with all the hotels and everything. We're needing to do some expansion to meet the safety complex, their needs. So there's a lot of growth and stuff coming. And I say all that because we need to do an inspection. The quick and easy way to provide the additional capacity, we found a place, or one of the staff did, we're calling it the Harry Patel option. Harry was sitting there after this, everybody stood around and scratched their heads. How can we do this without spending big bucks on a new force main? Well, there's a close by 15-inch gravity line. His solution, instead of rerunning the whole force main, is just cut it off, route it back over this 15-inch gravity line, which shortens the force main, reduces the head requirements. We're about all we can do as far as pumps after we do the Bergen Woods upgrades. With this, if we can check that line out, that 15-inch and the other downstream lines from it, to make sure there's no other conditional or structural issues with it. The solution would be to run from the station to this shortcut, reduce the force main, and allow us to basically blow the capacity of the station up, not only to capture this stuff, but the other. And I bring this up because we've gotten a quote from the same folks that did the TV work on Whitlock to go and check that stuff out. Now, the quote they gave us was $50,000 and some change. 50,000, a couple hundred or something. But it gets everything down to the 30-inch lines that we have downstream of this to make sure we don't have any other issues when we start bringing all this other stuff in from that station. That being said, what my intention was to seek permission to take funds out of our expansion, our SIF reserve, do the CCTV, which will tell us if the shortcut method for this particular development can be done. And it would also answer the question for all those other needs that we see coming. If you guys approve this, my next request would be, could we put it on the agenda tomorrow to get approval to do the CCTV work on that downstream gravity line?
I can support it as presented at this point.
And we've got the quotes in hand, so.
I would just like to see a map showing what we're talking about.
As far, I can get you one. Can I get permission contingent on getting you a map this afternoon?
Yeah.
And I'll get one. In fact, I can't do it now. I'll get it done right after.
Okay. Okay, the next thing is the property insurance renewal.
Chairman, I've got Fred McGinty here to speak to that.
We need to make a motion and take a vote if we're going to approve anything to move forward to commission. We need to make a motion, second, even though you have a small committee here, you still have to go through the voting process for approval items.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we direct our executive director to enter into an agreement for a proposal application with Wade Journey et al. To proceed with a design solution.
Unsolicited proposal.
Unsolicited proposal. So let me restate that. Thank you, Jimmy. Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we direct our executive director to move into and to proceed with an unsolicited proposal from Wade Journey Homes for an engineering solution that will support the addition of these 41 platted lots in the Saddlebrook community.
I'll second.
You second?
I'll second. All in favor? Mr. McGinney?
There was a second item. No, we need to, can we do a motion on the approval to do the CCTV work contingent on the chairman's review of an approval of a map?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you for coming.
Good morning. Thank you all for having me. The property and liability insurance for the commission renews March 15th. we've gotten a firm renewal proposal from the liability insurer, which is Guard Insurance. Their total premium is down $638 from last year. We moved the liability insurance to Guard last year from Triton Argonaut, who the commission had been with since the commission started. And the reason we moved is that we got a broad policy form and saved about $45,000 in premium. The property insurance has been with Ace American for the last 3 years. They've proposed a renewal premium increase of 3% on premium, and they were also requesting that we increase values 3%, insured values 3%. The commission conducted a comprehensive appraisal on a replacement cost basis of all the vertical facilities, the 3 water treatment plants and this building, in late 2015, and we implemented those insured values when the policy renewed in March of 2016. We have not increased values since then, and as you all know, inflation marches on. It's been pretty low, but it's still with us. So I think a 3% increase is probably a reasonable request to try to keep the values insured in line with actual replacement costs. As I mentioned to Jimmy and the staff recently, what I would suggest to the board, if y'all agree, is that I think there's a reasonable chance if we go back to ACE and say, we'll do the 3% increase in values, but how about giving us a flat rate? I think there's a reasonable chance they'll do that. They asked for 3% rate increase last year, and we were able to convince them to stay at a flat rate, so they have not increased their rates in the 3 years that they've been on our program. And I was just looking for some guidance from the Finance Committee. If you approve that approach, I can go back to them this afternoon and hopefully have an answer in time for the meeting tomorrow.
This is for all of the treatment plants and everything.
Yes, sir, and including, we did not appraise, when we did the appraisal in 2015, we didn't appraise the out facilities, the lift stations and water towers and that stuff. Staff felt like they had a pretty good idea of what the costs were for that, but we did the water treatment plants as well as this building.
And the premium's $98,000.
It's $194,384 for the property insurance.
I failed to make copies there. That's got the data on
The liability package is $98,000.
Okay. So do we not have a copy of this?
I can get it made real quick.
I may have some copies, Jimmy.
This is just the email you sent over to Pam.
So all we got in our packet is just the liability portion. Is that correct, Jimmy?
Just the liability and the cyber security
Okay,
policy.
let's go to that then. Is that the same premium as we paid last year?
Yes, sir, it is. It was, $57.81, same premium as last year for the cyber liability.
It looks like they changed in some of the liability, the coverage amount though.
Actually, that's an error on my part. This was copied from another proposal, and I updated the proposed limits but didn't update the expiring limits, and there has been no change in the expiring limits. What you see as proposed is what we had last year.
Okay, so the premium's actually a little bit less than what it was last year.
Yes, sir.
Right,
Yes, sir.
$600.
And one of the advantages of the Guard program is that their umbrella goes over the public officials' liability, which it's very rare to see an umbrella provide excess coverage on the public officials. Typically, if you want higher limits for public officials, you have to buy that in the public officials' policy.
Has the JWSC ever had a claim on this policy?
We've had liability claims and we've had auto liability claims. We've not had any public official liability claims.
Okay, so this is gonna be an approval item tomorrow too, Jimmy, then?
Yes, sir. You think we can't get an answer on the 3% improvement?
I think there's a good chance I can have an answer in time for the meeting tomorrow, yes, sir.
So we'll need as early as I can, I'll
Okay.
get a memo together for it.
I'll try to have it this afternoon and get you an email as soon as I have a response.
Yeah, we need that data before we move this thing to approval for the full commission.
It can wait. We've got enough time to move it to the next meeting if y'all want to wait and give him a little more time to work that out.
I would support that, because if there's not a burning issue here,
Yeah.
that we get it done tomorrow. Let's be sure we get all the data. You know, we've had some feedback from our peers and from ourselves on some of these things. They're not quite ready for prime time sometimes, and I think it'd be prudent for us to be prepared.
So if you can check
Yep.
with him.
I can do that, yep.
But make sure we understand there won't be another facilities committee meeting in time, so
It's a good point, Janice, and I think, again, I'm just speaking for myself. I think we're okay in principle with what we're dealing with, and I don't see the issue as significant such that we would need a lot of discussion among us commissioners. It's just, again, I'm just airing my thoughts here, is that if we get the data that we need and it's ready for our next full commission meeting, then in my view, I think it could be supported. Of course, Commissioner Elliott and I will be on another activity that particular day, but presumably there's a quorum. I can't imagine it being an issue.
Can I make one statement to that end? What we're saying here is we've got a premium that in total is going to be a little bit less than what we paid this year. And what he's going to be checking on is not going to change anything, except we'll be insured for a greater amount on our properties by
But-
3%.
Yes, well,
He's
the liability package is a little bit less than last year on the property
But on
property
property,
insurance
we
side.
went up.
They're the ones that are asking for a rate increase and an increase in
But
values.
the only thing that's going to change between now and whenever it does get voted on, and that's a maybe, is the condition of getting the assets bumped up, the replacement
Right.
value by 3%.
Or,
But you're thinking that they're gonna bump them up 3%, but hold the premium, is what
the
you're saying?
premium would increase 3%, but the property insurance is priced on the basis of a rate per $1,000 of insured value. So what they're asking for is to increase the rate 3% and increase the values 3%, which would mean a 6% roughly total increase in premium on the property insurance.
Now, is that going to change the
That-
amount of
that-
this?
It won't change the sheet that's yellow. That's the liability package. That's fixed, and that's done at a little less than last year. What it would change is it would increase the expiring premium of $194,384 on the property by either 3% or 6%, depending on how good a negotiator I am.
In short,
you
we would.
think you can get it down to 3%, is what
I
you're
think
saying?
I can get them, what I'm hopeful for is to get them to agree, if we increase values 3%, they'll leave the rate the same, so that means a total change in cost of 3%. They could come back to me and say, no, we gotta have both. And to give you some background, we approached about 12 or 15 other property insurers this year to see if anybody was willing to come in with a more competitive quote. The best number I had, other than Ace American, on the same values we had last year, was $200,000. And their policy form, in my mind, is not quite as good as Ace. So we've had 3 years of favorable loss history with Ace, and my recommendation is if we can negotiate, even if we had to deal with the whole 6%, I still think Ace is the best option.
In short, the increase could be a 3 or 6%.
Yes, sir.
Against the 194,000. So we're talking about approximately a $6,000 to $12,000 increase
That's correct.
in the property. The liability amount drops a fraction, slightly less than 1%.
Just enough to say it's down.
Got that.
One thing is, could we have one chart that has everything down to the bottom line of what we're approving?
Yes. I can get that to you this afternoon.
Is that by this afternoon? When this afternoon?
30 or 40 minutes. I get back to the island and put it together and shoot it to you. Yeah.
But the chart,
If we did that, we might could, so we can do it at this meeting tomorrow.
You know, what I might suggest is that you approve the 3 and 3 contingent on me trying to get it done for only the increase in values, if that makes sense.
Well, you can get back with us and then we'll
Yes.
decide that.
I don't know if I'll have you an answer on the 3%, but I'll get you one page showing the total premium for both. Yes, sir.
All right.
I'll make the call on the way back, but how quick I get an answer is up to other people.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
thank you, Fred.
Next item is USGS contract for 2019 data collection.
Yes, sir. Basically what this is, Chairman, is we've been involved with the USGS for a number of years now, and as of last year, they completed the model on our salt plume issue underneath Brunswick in the Floridan aquifer. The model tells us that if there's substantial change, either positive or negative, in the major drawers, GP, Panova, and us, you know, we could have some pretty significant changes in where that plume's at, what it does to us. It could affect our other wells as a result, those kind of things. The ground truthing that we did with the completion of the model last year, look, it, for the most part, verified the model. We're pretty confident in the model. At this point, it's my belief we need to continue to do the data collection, just the raw data collection, to be able to continue to monitor what's going on there and see that the model continues to verify what we're doing. If we get out there and something does happen in a negative way and it starts to move that salt plume around, you know, it could have some major impacts in the community. Being that we're the main stakeholder, because we're providing the public water, I think it's imperative that we keep an eye on our source water, and I'm recommending that we execute the contract. I will say that Commissioner Stevens indicated we need to go back again and request that at least the two major, I guess, local users of the Floridan aquifer, Georgia Pacific and Panova, we sent them a letter. I've drafted a letter. I can share it, but we're going to go ahead and push that out to our contacts at those two entities to see if would be willing to share at some level. In the past, they've done a little bit of lip service, or at least Georgia Pacific has, but I'm not sure that we've ever actually received a check. And they're doing some of their own groundwater work, but in the meantime, I recommend we approve this and do what we can to recover portions of what we're spending.
What did we spend last year?
120.
And this year is going to be 60?
Yes, sir.
If I may,
Yes, sir.
Jimmy, I remember sitting out there and hearing the discussion last time this came up. I just want to reinforce my understanding. Essentially, this is, without going through all these details, we're subscribing to USGS to continue the monitoring, and they're going to provide data to us as a customer of subscribed service.
They're going to provide it to us as the owner of the data, I guess, in a certain sense. They get a grant for half of this, and we pay the other half for the total cost to get the work done. They'll provide us the data, but it's not a subscription. I mean, well, in a sense it is, because if they don't get the matching funds, they're not going to do the data collection. They don't have the other sources to do it.
Understood.
So in that sense, it is a subscription. But it's not called out as, it'll be public information once it's done.
Okay, then on the other two major stakeholders in our community, if we support this and then the study becomes public knowledge, there's no real advantage for them to partner with the cost, right? They just get it because it's then public knowledge.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would say, I know at least the contact I've got over at Georgia Pacific, He's very engaged. He is also part of the Georgia Coastal Water Planning Group that Commissioner Browning is part of. And I know he wants to do the right thing as far as, trying to help out. I don't know with the work they're doing on their own, because they've got their own issues and concerns over there, whether they're going to be willing to spend money on what they're doing and send money our way to do it as well. But I don't think it hurts to ask. I'm just saying, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
And Georgia Pacific, they're not a customer of ours?
No.
Okay, but Pinova is a customer.
Pinova is a sewer customer.
But not a water customer.
Pardon?
Not a water customer.
Not water. They got their,
Except for domestic. Okay.
yeah, drinking water.
Okay. So we need to approve this present on the approval for the vote for the commission tomorrow.
That'd be great if we could.
I'm supportive of continuing on. It's, in my view, it's basic knowledge, well, I shouldn't say basic. It's important information that we need to know to continue our evaluation of potential solutions if we get more saltwater intrusion.
Sure, I totally agree. And
So it affects the timing of when we might execute a fix or a solution.
when it's time for us to get involved and take greater steps on what's. And I will say this, on Georgia Pacific, not so much Pinova, but Georgia Pacific has made huge strides over the last, I guess, 20 or so years to turn their use around and reduce it. They're doing internal recycling, those kind of things. So they're making a big effort, and I believe that if we did see the beginnings of something going on, they'd be willing to step up and help us out.
Well, I think it's money well spent because it's the most important thing we need for our water system. We have
Absolutely.
great quality water, but if salt water gets into it, it's not very good. So, do we need to make a motion?
I will do that. I'm just thinking here as to how we're going to phrase that.
To approve the executive director to enter into agreement.
With the United States.
Yep, I see it now. I move that we approve the executive director to move into an agreement with the United States Department of Interior and the U.S. Geological Survey South Atlantic Water Science Center to continue a study on behalf of Joint Water Sewer Commission for the evaluation of the salt water plume impacting the Florida aquifer.
A second. All in favor? Okay, the next thing, we move to the discussion items, engineering selection RFP for Academy Creek
Yes, sir.
and Dunbar Creek.
We've got a draft that's at the back of this pack, of this section, that we've already put together, and maybe a couple of tweaks left to get it just right. We'd like your review and anybody else on the commission that wants to take a peek at it, because this is a significant RFP going out. In addition, the bullet items that are listed on number 2 are included in here. I've got basically the written description of the fixes that we're proposing for the engineering contracts at each of the 2 plants that go through the various things that we've got here. We can talk about it, or y'all can take it back. In addition, I've inserted maps behind this document that if you look at the number on the document, you find that plant and that number, and that's where the work will be transpiring inside the various the 2 plants. So that kind of outlines the work. The document behind it outlines the estimates we've got based on an initial assessment that was done and some additional items that we've added as a result of further inspections and just further findings. The first page of the next document deals with the cost we anticipate or estimate for Academy Creek. The last spreadsheet has the needs for Dunbar Creek to rehab or fix some of the things that we've got there that need a little help. And then again, the very last thing is a copy of the actual draft RFP that we're working through to get that done. If there's no questions, we can talk about. Behind that, I've included a summary of the unit cost for the 3 plants with January, up through the January numbers. You can see the historical unit cost on the page behind it. These costs you see in the summary sheet are just the 4 main sources of cost at each of the plants. So it's not everything that they see, but it is the key ones at each plant. And they're not all the same because at Academy Creek, oxygen's a big purchase item there.
Okay, let's go back to the Academy Creek. We estimate that the construction cost, including engineering, is gonna be $10,500,000.
That includes all the contingencies, admin, and engineering.
And we've applied for a $10 million GFA loan.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, in total, it's gonna be 15. So we may have some hard decisions unless things work out good for us.
If we go down through the items, the big ticket items are the admin lab building modifications,
Yep,
filtration,
yep,
and the dryer upgrades.
yes, sir.
Can you just briefly summarize those?
Well, the building upgrades, we've talked about this a few times, that it's, basically our intent was to move our operations from all the locations into one central operations headquarters so that we'd have a more consolidated ability to manage what's going on, get some efficiencies of sharing people, equipment, those kind of things. This is a logical building because of the structural shape of that building. If we could go back in and put in the office space, locker rooms, those kind of things, it would give us not only a structurally much safer place during disasters and storm events, but it'd give us adequate space for the other things we need. We'd be elevated above normal flood if you go with the second floor up. The other thing we were talking about doing there was taking the old ground level operations control room and lab that's there at Academy Creek and moving it also into the upper levels of the building. This is something that, you know, if I'm having to pick and choose things to go away, that would probably be up there in the top 2, just because we can live without it. It's a good thing because of the things that we've got out there, but it's not a.
That would be one of the last things you'd want to do.
It'd be the last thing I want to do, but it's probably the first thing I would do, if that makes sense. The other item, the filtration, what
So
I'll
you're
say.
saying that's the priority thing, number 1 priority? You're
Pardon?
saying that's number 1 priority of the admin building?
No, he says that's the bottom of the list, that's what he cut.
Okay.
It is not my,
All right.
it is, I'll
It's
just
not
say.
critical to our operations to
No.
do that.
No, we can, it would help us become more efficient and have a little better situation during storms, and it'd probably give us a little better space for some of that, but it is not critical.
Yeah, let me add on to that, if I may, please. For that type of expenditure not being critical to the business in general,
Yeah.
is I'd want to see some
Perform.
performer that shows what is the efficiency.
Yeah.
What do we eliminate?
Mhm.
How do we actually reduce the cost? Do we eliminate a head count? Do we eliminate some utility cost? Or are we closing facilities that cost us to maintain them because we have a distributed workforce?
There'll be a little bit of each of those. I think one of the things also that we've talked about, and one of my goals is, whether we move all the operating groups together in one location or not, one of the things that I want to do is get better control of our inventory. Right now, we've got multiple inventory locations, and with the help of Ms. Crosby, who we put in charge of, you know, inventory management at the warehouses, she's going in and actually implementing as quickly as she can, and there's a lot of hiccups, but to be brief, she's getting us turned around where we can use B&Ps to manage the inventories.
Yep.
And manage and track where everything's going and know what we've got on the shelf is what we show in the books, and know that stuff that's there is stuff we need, as opposed to just filling them up with things that we think we might need or have left over from past times. So that's another big area. I was thinking if we'll get that done with or without these changes that I'm asking for in the building, but it would be awfully convenient if we had the various, especially the field crews, starting out in one place in the mornings, picking up their materials and being able to go out. There would be some abilities to get flexibility out of the manpower we've got. So, you know, somebody's out today off of one of the distribution crews, we can work with get somebody from the SP&M construction crews, or
Right.
you want to
Jimmy,
share equipment.
I support the vision that you have in regards to the
Possible use.
staff consolidation and those efficiencies that can be gained in that regard. I need to see
Get a
more
better detail.
granularity
Okay.
on a pro forma, and
I'm with you.
we hold ourselves accountable to achieve that.
We'll work that up. But the next item was the filtration unit. And basically what this is just it's more or less an insurance policy to clean up our effluent if something were to go wrong in the plant, or if we were to have an issue. And the only comment I'll put out there on this, we've only had a couple of actual issues in the last 3 years I've been here where we had even surface foam escape. We've not been out on any of our numerical permit limits. It was purely more an aesthetic thing and not a real pollution thing. What I would say is the causes for the foam on those occasions and historical foam conditions down at the plant, because of the nature of the technology and the way you've got to run it the way you got to run it to make sure it doesn't produce the foam and that kind of thing, which was our problem at that time. I know with the work we're doing with the new oxygen upgrades and revising how we operate the 3 basins to get more food through one, and we'll be working through that very slowly. But I think by the time we get the design done on this thing, we'll have a better idea of some of the operational optimizations that we're trying to implement are going to facilitate consistent enough effluent quality that we don't need to, maybe that would be an area that we could trim some fat as well. And Commissioner Turp said, what was that last one we wanted to talk about? The
dryer overhaul and upgrade.
dryer overhaul. That's a big money winner for us. Number one, the dryer is worn out, but when it is running, it dramatically reduces our haul cost and our disposal cost and our haul cost for sludge at Academy Creek. Mr. Burroughs' concept, first we need to fix it based on the analysis that we received here recently. But second, Mr. Burroughs pointed out that with the kind of savings we're making off of Academy Creek, if we could consolidate the solids from the other 2 plants, we could achieve the same savings there. So what we want to do, and we've already mapped out, we want to create a dump hopper that can feed the the dryer, and get the same drying benefits, the same reduction in haul costs, the same reductions in disposal costs, because well, it's a significant 6-figure savings is what I'm told.
Can we do that without having an engineering firm design that? At least-
I'd be reluctant.
At least rehab the dryer.
We've got the dryer. We just need to, we do need to do
We need to rehab that, but.
We need to
have
rehab that.
Outside of the,
but we're gonna have to, what the concept is, Commissioner Turp said, is to, just outside the building, on the other side of the little office area, build a large like hopper
Right,
that the
okay.
trucks can dump in, and then we'll need like an auger
okay.
to deliver it up to feed it into the, so I'm not sure we'd wanna do it without getting a little bit of engineering.
Okay. When will these RFPs be able to go out?
let me see, my target. Okay, my target right now is the end of this month.
Okay.
But again, that's contingent on some more eyes taking a peek at it before we push it out the door.
Okay, let's go to Dunbar Creek.
Okay?
Dunbar Creek, basically it's the aeration basins, aeration in the blowers, some odor control issues.
Yes, sir.
Basically, that's it.
Yes, sir.
On those, is it, operationally, we're not able to perform those tasks without these upgrades? Or is it the equipment's at the end of life?
Okay, here's the situation for each one of them. Odor control, we've got the same or similar issues to the one we got at Academy Creek. We have a lot of H2S, which you know what it does to the equipment out there, and then the reasons why we need to get that out. The new effluent splitter box, the way it's set right now, it's a large manual gate that there's just no efficient, effective way to control it. You don't know for sure just what the split is going to the two basins that we're using to treat. So a little bit of improvement there would be pretty nominal to get very efficient controls. The aeration basins and the blowers, what we're looking at there is if you go out there and visit the basins, walk around the top, you can see bubbles welling up all over the top surface, except in certain areas. Certain areas, there's nothing going on. What has happened? The diffusers in the bottom of the vessel, they've broken. We're not getting air everywhere, so we're not achieving optimal treatment.
You can see that in the picture right there.
Yeah, and either one of them. Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay, so what would be, because of Dunbar's, I mean, it virtually integrated into the local residential area. Very briefly, try to characterize what the construction impact would be to the neighbors, and then any improvements in operations.
The improvements, and I didn't mention this, the other thing about the blowers is right now we don't have optimized or flow control into the two basins to get the air. If we fix the diffusers, we need to go ahead and set in place O2 online analyzers that tie what we're doing in terms of air we're blowing into each basin to the actual concentration of oxygen, excess oxygen in the basins. So that would be an efficiency improvement in terms of energy because of the reduced power to run the blowers, that we can run them at a lower speed. And the fact that we put in the full diffusers throughout the system will also improve our efficiency and effectiveness because we'll be getting full treatment throughout those basins.
In short,
The impact
because
on
we
the
operate
community.
the blowers differently, it's
Yeah,
not
right
going
now
to
they're
create
just-
more noise.
Yeah, well, no, they're not gonna make more noise. They won't make any more. They might make a skosh less, but during the construction period, what my anticipation would be, that probably the only thing is if we had to do some bypass pumping or something, but I don't anticipate that.
Okay.
I think we've got enough valving to isolate the two basins fully and get everything done without.
For the construction
Boy,
traffic.
It's not right, is it? Because we gotta do we would, if we do the feed flow, we would have to bypass that area.
There's not gonna be a whole lot of construction traffic.
Okay, where I was going with that is that possible to come in off Sea Island Road instead of going through the neighborhood?
It's possible. We'd have to get some permission.
That would be good if we
You
do
wanna go
that.
down Woodpecker Lane.
I'm sorry?
You wanna go down Woodpecker Lane. That's the name that I've been told that it is.
Yeah,
Okay, because of all the pine trees that are,
Yeah, the only issue you have is you have very poor access, to get on Sea Island Road.
The site distance is kind of bad there.
understood, exiting, it's a kind of more of a right turn only going west. And of course, coming in, it's a little bit easier from there. I'm just thinking of reducing the impact to the residential.
Well, you know, Who owns that road?
Sea Island.
I think we were at one time trying to work a deal where we would own the road and we were gonna expand the road, but that got all
Okay.
messed up. But it would be a good thing for us to not go through the neighborhood there and work with the county to do that at some point.
We can reach out again and see.
Yeah.
They would be willing to entertain it.
The one thing that I would like to see, we've had some trouble with the UV system there. And Mr. Riles mentioned that at the last meeting. I think we probably need to think about if that equipment needs to be upgraded or something as far as the UV equipment.
I'll say this, we might get a factory guy to come out and do the same thing we did with before we,
No.
I'm not sure if it's operational issues as opposed to mechanical.
Okay, let's move ahead. Let's go to the operational cost for each wastewater plant.
Yeah, that was, again, that was the last section that we've got in here. We've got the summary of the 4 greater ones for these plants. And then behind it, each of the individual plants and what the historical cost for these components, and then the graphical analysis or depiction of what's going on there. One of the things I was told to make sure I pointed out to everyone was one of our operators moved over to Southport here recently. If you look to the Southport curve, this guy's picked up on some opportunities to really improve the operating cost as a whole out at Southport. Not sure how long this is going to be sustained because we know what he's doing, but at least initially, this guy is looking for opportunities to really knock down those costs. But right now, we're still pretty hefty.
You know, the Academy Creek, in reviewing these before, if you look at the sludge cost a month in 2017, there was 4 months there where it was much higher than all of the other months. I wonder what caused that, because that's.
Sarah,
Was that?
the dryer, that Fenton dryer,
in
when it goes
2017?
down, we're taking very wet sludge to the landfill. And it was down a lot in 2017.
Does this include gas costs too, though?
No, gas costs are not included. That's a very small fraction. It's a real good deal for us to run that dryer.
And we're going to see an analysis about us doing our own hauling.
Yes, sir, that's coming.
Right, okay. Okay, well, that's good information.
All right, sir.
The RFP for St. Simon's Island smoke testing and dye testing study.
Yes, sir. We received our responses today. We've opened them up, and the lowest responsible bidder, McKim & Creed, were low by a huge amount. We're familiar with their work. They did some of the flow monitoring for St. Simon's Island. They're very credible. They're pretty close. Staff would, even without formal recommendation, I'd almost tell you right now to go ahead and do it, but we are going to go through in the morning the formal recommendation or evaluation, and I'm requesting if we can get that done in the morning to be able to put this on the agenda for tomorrow evening or tomorrow morning.
Was this less than what they estimated when they did the?
They told me,
study?
they told us 144,000. When they were in here doing the flow monitoring,
Right.
they said they'd turn around right then and do 144,000. So this is better.
So what's their price on this one?
Their price this time is $119,656 versus the Gulf Coast, excuse me, Underground, $189,221.
And when would they be prepared to start?
I'm not sure. I'll have to determine that. I'm imagining since they're only down in Jacksonville, they might be able to turn it around pretty quick if we give them notice to proceed.
If we can just say that tomorrow, I don't mind putting it on the agenda tomorrow to approve it.
I'd like it. You mean to find out what the start time is? That's the
And
question.
also, did I miss it, is the duration of the project?
It's a 90-day duration,
Okay.
It's basically smoke testing, right?
smoke testing. So I may be overly ambitious, but I do believe we're going to find a lot of problems that are contributing to the surges we see at that plant in the smoke testing. The only question I have is, how easy is it going to be to get all that stuff fixed?
Any other questions on that? I think we need to put it on the agenda for approval tomorrow.
I support that. That's a project we need,
Long enough.
yeah, we need to move this one ahead.
Do we need to vote on that, Janice?
Yes, sir, if you want.
I'll make a motion that we approve the award to McKim Creed and put it on the agenda tomorrow.
Second.
All in favor?
Anybody agree?
Next thing is the North Mainland Sewer District Phases 2 and 3. Splash, an update on that.
Okay, that's,
That's not in, we don't have this in order, do we?
pardon me?
Is it in order in our,
That's on agenda item 4.
Yep.
It's in order. Oh, let me pull back what I said. It's not 90 days, it's 180 days on the
Smoke test.
smoke test.
okay,
That's in the RFP,
so that's 6 months.
Yeah.
the proposal.
6 months.
6 months.
Well, let me follow up, Jimmy, with another question. Given that, do we expect them to release information based on, I'll call it each basin or each area, rather than at the end of the
They'll give
project?
us a detailed spreadsheet that shows, okay, with documentation pictures, if they see smoke coming out of a roof or out of the ground or whatever, they'll get it, they'll go out and, give us the coordinates and where it's at, and we'll have the full, everything we need to know about it to go back and resolve whatever we find during the process.
Yeah, my thoughts are is perhaps run a little far ahead here is as we get that information after the first 30 days of actual site work, we begin to accumulate that and start sorting those areas for priorities of repair, recognizing we may get the worst actor that shows up at the end, but if we begin that prioritization early on, then once we get the final data, we should be able to act on it sooner than later. I'd rather see us begin
We can,
that.
and one of the chores we've got right now, I've obtained copies of, the kind of documentation you do to inform property owners their assets are defective and they need to get out there. County ordinance supports us that if you as a private property owner, you got to maintain your stuff so that you don't allow I&I to get into our system through your assets. So we've got ordinance, authority or rights to go out and do something about it. I've got copies of the notification letters and the timelines and those kind of things. We may have to tweak it, and you guys will have to tell us, yeah, you'll go with that. But basically what we need to do is be able to go out and say, in the letter, per the county ordinance, here's what it is. We found these, here's the examples, here's the locations of where your lines, your assets are defective, and this is what it's causing. And you have X number of days to take care of it. My only apprehension is gonna be, there may be some cost involved, in significant cost to the property owners. And I know, for some of the property owners over there, maybe the cost we're talking about will be negligible. But even if it's low, there's gonna be folks in some of the poorer homes or older homes that are gonna be going, man, that's a lot of money. So we may get some blowback.
Well, that's understandable, and I think we can address that as we get into it. And I was thinking on a more macro scale, Jimmy, is on the areas where we need to do some upgrades to our conveyance system.
Yeah,
That,
smoke testing generally, I don't think that's really geared towards the repairs that we need for the most part. I mean, you're gonna see maybe some smoke coming out of a few manhole lids that have, that's typical. The vents on the manholes have some smoke coming out of them. And by the way, just for the record, it's not real smoke. It's just,
Understand, it's a dye of some sort.
yeah, it's just atomized gas going through that shows up. Anyway, having said that, there won't be a lot of work for us to do unless we find a problem where there's a cross connection between our line and a sewer line, a stormwater line. That can either be because they are still connected from back in the days when they were combined sewer drainage and everything went in the same place. Or it could be a place where one or the other, they're stacked on top of each other, and one or the other of them, or both of them, have broken, collapsed, and now they're intermingling and allowing stormwater to come into our system through that cross connection. We'll be able to take those and as we get the assessments, move pretty quickly, I think. It ought to be pretty
It'll
straightforward.
require us to video some.
Sir?
Will we have to video some when we see some smoke testing problems?
The
Because-
only video I would see is if we got a smoke coming out of a storm drainage asset, then we need to go back in and document where
But we can do that.
we can,
They-
yes,
They don't have
yes,
that in their contract.
absolutely.
And if something major, if we see a big problem, we can hop on it and fix it right there.
Yes, sir.
We don't have to wait till the study's over with.
No, yes, sir. I'm sorry, I'm sure that's what you were asking, wasn't it?
Well, the other
Are they
thing
gonna
was,
prepare the sheet that we mail out to the customers to explain what's going on, or do we?
Oh,
prepare
you mean
that?
in advance? Yes, they're gonna make the notifications, those kind of things. But as far as the sheet that tells them what we're expecting of them once we find a problem, that's on us.
Yeah, but the sheet to let the community know what's going on.
They're supposed to do,
They're gonna be working in certain areas.
yeah, they're gonna be
Is
doing
there
the
any-
notifications of the neighbors, they're gonna be notification of the public safety folks. We're gonna be, and
Fire
we're,
department,
fire department, police.
okay, good.
Let me ask you this, where we have clay lines, and there may have been a plumber's connection where he just broke the clay line, whose responsibility is that gonna be, ours? For the collection?
There's no way to track those kind of things back. It'll, at the point in time where we need to fix it, it'll be ours at that, unless, the smoke testing is somehow coming in and through that broken lateral right there.
Mhm.
Most of the time, you have fairly specific locations. Right there, it's coming up out of the ground. Now, sometimes you have root runners and those kind of things that come in and let it in from other places. We may have to do, spot fixes on some of that.
We might have to do some dye testing too. Do they have dye testing on
The dye testing I anticipate is going to be for where we have the stormwater and the sewer connected.
Okay, let's go to the SPOS 2016 North Mainland sewer improvements.
Okay.
which of these has had any significant change since our last update?
Neither of them right now. And as far as
How about item 602? I'll give you a moment to find that one on,
Holly Street,
right, and over the project status over on the far right.
there's no change on that. Well, in fact, right now, our move on 602 is to, actually, we're working with the county to get that money released to us directly so that we can go out and do repairs on those old steel lines, steel sewer lines in CPOMs.
Right.
You remember the one line that we took 11 months nearly to get through with? Well, the inspections of the lines around it we've determined that there's a lot of near about that. What the approach is that we've proposed is we take that money, once we get it released from the county, and we're working on it, and then turn around and do CIPP liners for those old steel before one or more of them does have another failure. And because of the depth and the issues, the tightness of the working areas, it ain't gonna get any prettier than it was the last time.
Understood. So what would you expect to be a date sure that we have a resolution that we could move ahead with a
Holly
different
fund?
project?
The Holly Street
Right.
funds?
You'll be renaming it presumably when you get,
I cannot at this time give a date certain because it's contingent on getting the county and our boards to approve an intergovernmental agreement that would transfer those funds from them to us. And we're very close to getting the last details for the attorneys to get the resolution finalized to, get it on the two. But it's gonna take both sides signing off on that.
Construction plans
So
are
my
finished.
guess would be, not a date certain, but my guess would be, we might be able to get started, getting the work bid out here in the next 2 to 3 months.
Construction plans are finished, right?
Yes, sir.
Design plans.
Well, I'm talking about CIPP. I'm not talking about digging it up and reconstruct. We're talking about item 602, right?
yep.
I'm not, there's no,
It's got Hodges, Harbin, Newberry, and Tribble.
well, that's who designed the original project, but
Okay.
in discussions with the staff, what I've found out is there's not a really driving need to go out and do any work on those lines at Holly Street. The real need we've got right now are these others, and so our efforts have been to free up the money so we can get control of it. The designs were done, we turned them in, and literally nothing's happened since we got over there. Well, it's lasted so long, it's been delayed so long at the county, that now we've got a greater need that fits the defined purpose in the SPLOST 5.
What I'd like to see on this, Jimmy, is what are the milestones? If Charlie needs to be the lead on this, let's find out what it is that has to happen. Does
Oh,
Charlie
that-
need to provide information?
No, what Charlie's waiting on right now is the staff to finalize maps on which lines it is that we want to replace. What he's saying in the resolution is, okay, we want to take it from this other work we wanted to go for is this fits the resolution for this reason. I can write up what it's for once I get the last details in the maps in my hand of which are the lines we want to apply it to.
So we're waiting on staff to get that, and
That's right.
what's the priority from staff, and what's the date
They
you
were,
expect?
they were pushing it hard yesterday, trying to finalize the list of what we were doing in the West Sea Palms area. East Sea Palms, we've got it pretty well defined, but West Sea Palms, they were still struggling with what they've got. My last answer to them, they wanted to know how detailed they needed to be about defects and those kind of things. I said, my instructions were, I want to be able to justify transferring the money. So give me enough details to justify what we're asking for.
I would
and that was-
think that we could have a high-level description of it in the linear feet, and the street
Okay.
names, and that,
That's what
in
I
my
was-
view, would be adequate enough for us to make a decision and perhaps for the county board to make a decision on a.
Yeah, theirs is more,
In terms of getting information from staff
Yeah.
to move the ball forward, okay?
I got you.
It's, my sensitivity here, Jimmy, is I'd rather not continue to see monthly on this report that we're still waiting on somebody else to get information, whether it's
Right.
internal or otherwise. This is very important for the community that all of these projects move forward this year.
Now, so far as the North Mainland, when are we gonna be taking bids on, proposals on that?
February the 27th.
Okay,
Good deal.
so we could have that presentation at the, for our next, meeting then after that.
Yep.
you show us briefly on the map where those lines are?
Ooh, I didn't bring,
Do you have that?
I knew I needed to bring my maps. No, I can't right now. I'm not,
Okay.
I can provide you maps with it because this stuff has changed a good bit. When I was last really deeply in it, we were gonna be routing around, Harry
Okay.
Driggers.
Let's skip while we're talking about that and do the presentation on the Whitlock Avenue interceptor then. Let's skip
Say that
to-
again?
Let's skip to number 6, and we'll do number 5 after that. Let's skip to number 6,
Okay,
presentation on Whitlock Avenue video.
all right.
Now, is the contractor finished with the video on that line?
They have.
And can you give us a summary?
Yeah, basically, the lines are, most of the lines have liners and the liners that, the pipes that are lined are in great shape. And the concrete pipes that I mistakenly put VCP, but they're concrete, they're in pretty good shape. The only issues that they had were the possibility of leakage around the flanges, which we can do some external grouting if that seems necessary. I'm not sure that it's really required for this purpose. But the manholes, the only other thing that the staff reported to me were that the manholes were all in pretty much in need of help and rehabilitation. We've received no pictures or video inspections of the manholes themselves, so that piece is not done. We should be getting the final report from Southeast Pipe on March 1st.
That's good news now. The attachment shows some pictures of the video
Yep.
through the sewer lines.
Yep, we've got,
And my question, Jimmy, is on SPLOST 2016, you say that the total cost for remaining work is $11.2 million.
right,
Obviously, we're not gonna have to spend as much money on the Whitlock Avenue interceptor as we
I
anticipated.
think so.
So we need to maybe reassess that $11.2 million
We'll find out with the
because
final
we were
report.
using a lot of capital improvement money to supplement the SPLOST on that project. They also looked at the downstream interceptor from the pump station right there before Academy Creek, right?
Say that again?
They also videoed all the way down to the Academy Creek plant, basically.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's good. If anybody wants to see a lot of videos and gets totally seasick, they can coordinate a meeting with the staff to do that. Okay, let's go back to the RFP for sewer expansion, item 5.
We took the memo that was provided at the commission meeting and went out. We've drafted, the last portion of this is the initial draft, or not the initial, the current status of the draft of the RFP that we're proposing to put out. The 3 drawings you have here are our best analysis or interpretation of the 3 areas that we wanted to do the study on. I'll mention, like I did earlier, that the study itself right now is going to be looking at low-pressure systems versus gravity systems to sewer these areas, providing cost on per household basis. In addition, since we're already looking at it, staff decided there may be some folks out there that need help with their water, so we're going to look at what it would take to provide water systems in those areas as well on a per household basis.
Okay, I kind of have a question, maybe it's in this other areas on the, west side of, 95 and south of, 25 that also have issues that we didn't include.
And I asked the same question, when looking at it, based on the descriptions we had in the letter, it looked like we assumed that there was the 3 areas that were geographically situated where they could be served together. So we've used the boundaries of the water and whatnot here, or the stream that's running through there as a kind of the backed off portion. There's marshland and stuff back here in these undeveloped areas behind the pink study areas. So it's kind of more or less it is what it is, unless we want to identify additional areas specifically. This stuff, in all likelihood, won't be connected to this stuff in the final, but we can add them. That's not a problem.
On Exhibit 3, is that the one that shows the Arco community?
So, let me look at it. Yeah, that's Arco.
Looks like the sewer line's all around it, isn't it?
Yeah, it shouldn't be hard to get it to sewer.
Yeah, okay. What this is gonna do is gonna give us a cost analysis so we can then look at other areas. And, when do you think this proposal is gonna go out? RFP?
Okay, our expansion, we're targeting 228 to get this RFP out. Again, with another set of eyes taking a look at it.
Okay, good.
Next is the water and sewer engineering and construction standards revisions.
Okay, the bullets that I got from Todd, we're gonna be here in the next month, finishing up, doing the compiling and getting third-party vetting and review. With a draft copy in hand, we'll run it back through our stakeholders and then come back and incorporate our feedback into those specs. Looking for a final draft and then presentation to the Facilities Committee in June of this year. So we're a few months down the road.
So the final draft before they submit it to the county and the city or whoever they need to submit it to is gonna be June? Or is that when they?
Well, thereabouts. This final draft will be right there right before
That
we,
will be before we submit it to the county and the city.
the final draft will be after everybody else, all the other stakeholders have had a chance to make their changes or comments. And then you guys will have what we believe is everybody's version if they want.
Have we
Maybe not
taken
everybody.
input from any stakeholders about
Not yet.
what's our plan in that regard, Jimmy?
Once we get everything with staff has identified as needs, incorporated into a draft, an overall draft that our consultants reviewed, we'll then go back and issue it out, and, invite our folks, whoever they might be, builders, developers, community officials, to review it.
Engineering consultants.
Engineering consultants, the gambit.
So at what point will we survey to see how much buy-in from the people that live in those areas? I mean, we want to extend service.
Wait a minute, we're talking about the design and construction standards.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right.
Okay.
Well, perhaps we want to back up and respond to that one on our study areas.
So what's the question again?
When are we going to survey the populace?
I guess after we get the data back. Which, you know, I can make a guess right now that we'd be talking about 60 to 90 days to do the engineering, to do the analysis and come up with some estimates. And that put us, this summer, we'd be able to, I assume, have community meetings or something like that. And at least get a cursory, a top level before we start going door to door.
On the design and construction standards and revisions, do we need to have an engineering firm involved in that?
We were intent on getting an engineering firm to kind of clean it up, make sure that there wasn't something our staff, because right now, the only comments we've got on it are the stuff that we picked up on through time and experience. For the folks that live with this stuff day in, day out, this is their everyday job to figure out and have seen a lot more than my staff has. We think it'd be advisable to get an engineering firm who's got some experience to take a look over and see if we missed something, if we need to tweak something, those kind of things.
Jimmy, a thought that comes to mind is, as we look at this, we're probably going to get the questions of why is this a new change, et cetera, or why not? And perhaps we'll be prepared to respond to stakeholders, the reasons that we're updating the standards, why we're moving to something different, what has been our operational experience, perhaps.
And the answer I would readily give is, you know, as you go through time, you have experience, you see what goes on, you become familiar with new technologies or issues that were created by the things that were done in the past. And you know, well, if we hadn't changed these in a long time, it's time to start and go back and recapture all the things that have changed to make sure that as we go forward, we're building things that are going to last for a lot longer with a lot less reliability issues or maintenance issues. It's got to be about continuous improvement. Oh, yeah.
Next is water meters replacement considerations.
Okay, got it. Commissioner Duncan, myself, Mr. Burroughs, and Commissioner Stevens went out and met with Georgia Power folks out in Darien to talk to them about their system and to get some general questions answered this past Friday. Again, just for reference, we've got there's a need right now to be looking at a overall replacement program for our meters and our registers, and we've been moving to Metrons, which have the cellular technology, which provides basically a built-in ability to get AMI results out of the meters we've got without some booster station or what do you call it, where you relay the signals, relay stations out there. The current rate, we're losing 150 or so of these meters a month. We've got 2,000 that are currently out we're having to manually read. We looked at a 20-year business analysis of the going the pathway we think might work if we stay with the technology we're looking at that we currently have versus the 20-year cost to do a phased-in approach using the Georgia Power / Census lease program approach. They were within a couple of 100,000 of each other on I can't remember the exact number that we had, but we're talking about tens of millions of dollars versus a couple 100,000. So they were essentially the same outcome financially over the 20-year period. The questions we had while we were there that we didn't, we're waiting on answers for, we were wondering if the telemetry equipment that they use could be applied to our Baxter meters. We've got great hardware in the ground. They're only 10 or 12 years old. If we can save the money on not having to buy the meters, and we're just using their transmitters to get the data up to the collection system, that'll dramatically shift the economics of this thing and put it in our court to use the Georgia Power approach. But we're waiting on the information from their technical folks on can we use their stuff to do what we want to do. They were also supposed to be giving us an overall look at using the GPC census approach with the various sizes and quantities of meters we've got. We forwarded to them the breakout of what we've got in the way of meters by size. And then the last thing that we questioned on them was the customer service aspect. The data comes into the utility, and you can collect all the data on what's going on with the individual meters at the utility using the software and the approach they've got. If we want a customer portal, so customers can look at their meter and see what's going on in real time and kind of track their usage and things that might be going on to cause their bills to be higher. The census folks have an add-on program that will come at a cost of, I was told, $100,000 a year with a 3% adder each year on that software contract. The Georgia Power is currently working on an in-house data portal for folks that use their system. They don't have it yet, and they're supposed to be getting us an answer on that. But I think the $100,000 would be a small investment if the telemetry works on our existing meters. Because our meters, 10 to 12 years old, there's really no reason why we should be losing accuracy on those of any significance for another 10, 15 years.
When are they gonna get back with us on that?
I'm waiting right now. I expected it this week,
Is that coming through Scott?
Scott.
Are we still having to go out and manually read about 150 more meters each month?
Each month.
We
Isn't that my
still,
part?
we still got 150? of
That's
them.
what I'm being told, 150 or so every month that are dying. Now, we're trying to get replacements to slow the rate at which we got to do that, but it's still coming along.
You got any other questions or comments on that, Bob? You've been.
The only thing, Chairman, is that at our last meeting, we said that we would push this project to the Facilities Committee and then make it ready for prime time for our next full commission meeting. It's clearly not going to be ready. So while we went on record as saying that we would address it tomorrow, my thoughts is that tomorrow I would just make a motion that we defer it until we're able to get the information from the vendor to complete the business analysis of the option.
Okay. It's not on there.
It's
yet.
not on there.
Understood, but
Yeah,
we're on record as saying we would put it on there, so
Right.
I think we would probably, other than today, saying that, it's just not ready yet.
right, yeah, okay. We can just give it in our report tomorrow. I'll just give it in our report tomorrow that we're deferring it.
Okay.
EPD waste load allocation for the new North Mainland Water Pollution Control Plant.
Andrew sent out a re-up on that here this past week, so we should be in good shape.
And he's also going to send one out for the Dunbar Creek to increase it to 5 million gallons a day.
Yep, he is.
This would
Remember,
extend- this
one of
would
the reasons
extend-
we didn't follow through and do the anti-degradation study that followed up to the original waste load allocation we got was because of the cost of the anti-degradation. If we weren't serious, I think we were talking about near six-figure total for the anti-degradation.
The watershed protection plans and the watershed assessments, so have those been done? Do we have watershed protection plans for each of our
We've
facilities?
just got the one, and it's basically, we had a problem with our consultant that the guy that had been doing it for the last several years left them, and it kind of got dropped, so they're picking it back up and piecing it together to get it done for us.
The EPD requires those plans because the non-point source pollution, the pollution from growth and everything, is sometimes a bigger problem than the point source pollution.
Yeah.
And you have to have some kind of control, which we'd have to work with the county and the city to make sure they have those development
Somebody's not
standards.
doing something they shouldn't.
Okay, number 10, current maps, areas without water in our sanitary sewer service.
Okay, what we've got, General Current City, is we've basically gone in and mapped St. Simon's, the mainland, and the south mainland area. And the stuff in this pink shade, that's the folks, the parcels that are all currently served by water and sewer. The stuff that's in blue are the parcels that are served by water only, our water. Meaning they need sewer, their own septic tank. The ones that are in green only, let me see. Well, that may be on that one, there's one. They're on our sewer, but they're not using our water. So those folks could be eligible to become a water customer. I did that, or we did that on each one of them. And this also, the maps also depict where the assets are, the closest water and sewer assets are to throughout the system, so we can, this is what we were looking for, the maps of where everything is, where there's opportunities for water, opportunities for sewer. This is what we've got.
And what'd you say the green was?
The green is the sewer owner. They're a
Sewer
sewer
owner.
customer of ours. They're not a water customer.
How do we bill them?
We have meters on their sewage.
Okay.
Well, let me take that back. There are some that we have a problem with because in some of the neighborhoods that are on woody water, there's not a, they're woody, those systems, I'm sorry, that's the right term, but the
Private water
is
system.
not metered. They just have a flat fee each month. And we've had a problem with, maybe one or two, areas that we do this, that we're basically having difficulty getting them to pay their bills.
Yeah.
And we don't have any means to, no leverage to make them come into compliance.
And we're gonna keep those maps mounted like that so we can look at them.
Sure, absolutely. If you don't mind, I'll probably put them in a little more
Right.
convenient location.
Okay, the updated master plan asset scorecard.
All right. Me and the appropriate staff went through and did our rating, and if you'll notice in the very last column, I put the stuff that was in the last master plan, the Four Waters, and their scores. I think overall, everybody has about the same, or very nearly the same, impression of our asset conditions. Some variation. And the operational superintendents, we asked them to just score the assets that are under their purview.
What were the criteria used to make the assessment?
There was no specific criteria. It was basically subjective based on understanding conditions and functionality of the assets.
Okay, and given that, for the ones that have the lower letter grade, are those locations aligned with our improvement plan?
Yes, and certainly on the plants, we're definitely in line there. We're putting money into the collection systems, and we're focusing on certainly on some of the distribution stuff like the galvanized pipe, those kind of things we're trying to make a concerted effort there, but we don't have enough money to really address everything right now. So we're focused on things, starting with the plants, because they're our highest priority to get the treatment done.
Understood, and it would be impractical if we had no limit to resources that we would do it all at once. But, for example, any of the conveyance systems on sewer of the three systems, Dunbar, Exit 29, Academy Creek, the assessment offered is very broad, and my thoughts are is perhaps that's not assessment for the entire system where we have pockets of issues.
No, you'll definitely have spots where it's better than here than
Right.
10 blocks away
So
in a
that's,
newer area.
yeah, and that's why I ask,
This is
is a
it's kind of a
subjective judgment,
cumulative.
yeah, is a subjective judgment the right way to assign a score or letter grade, given that when Four Waters did it, I'm not sure what their criteria was. But
Yeah.
that's where I'm challenging.
I guess where a way I'd respond to that, to get a more defined rating for all this stuff, one of the things we've been doing for a long time is talking about trying to get asset management ranked, pumped up here.
Okay.
What is that? Going out and determining what the condition is of all those assets. Well, when you talk about you got 50,000 different pieces or assets out there, there's a lot of work to CCTV every one of those lines. And the water lines in particular, now that's just on the sewer side, you can at least CCTV them and start to get scores and rank the pipes, which they've done 30% of the systems over on the island, and I don't think they're anywhere near that, maybe 10 or 15% over here on the mainland. But there's a ton of work out there. At the rate they're going, I'll be long dead and gone. We're gonna have to look at ways to help them become more effective and efficient to get those ratings. But until we do numerical ratings and code the defects and figure out what's what where, I can't give you like a spreadsheet that says this pipe is this score and therefore it ranks here, and then take the weighted average of all those 50,000 assets and come together with a cumulative score, if that's what you're looking for.
Well, where I'm headed with this, Jimmy, is my preference would be is the areas where we have deficiencies, that we've identified those sufficient enough to define a solution. And when I say solution, I'm not talking about down to getting an RFP or even a bid in for that, but we've defined a scope in a given basin, for example, on the collection system, so that it doesn't continue to linger as an issue. Over time, I would suggest that due to degradation, if we do nothing, everything would decline.
That's correct.
But as we know, we have funds through SPLOST and through other revenue sources that we continue to invest in our system. So those specific areas where we are reinvesting or rehabbing, the score on those areas should improve. So even with a subjective rating, that you should expect to see some rise in the letter score, if you will. Otherwise, when I look at this, Four Rivers did their assessment, and now we're doing our thumbnail assessment, that darn, doesn't look like we've made a lot of progress, but we are investing millions of dollars into our system, and we are improving it remarkably.
Well, let's go through that. The $15 million we got for supplies, 11.7 was on expansion. And we did make some improvements to some stations because we had some problems with them to get them. So we made some improvements in some of the conveyance to some of the bigger stations out coming from the North Mainland. To those overall way ahead, there's still so much because you're taking those stations along with all the lines that serve them and that kind of thing. But a lot of the work, a lot of the money is going into expansion. That's not old assets for the most part. That's going to be a lot of money going into new assets. So if you want to say we've got more new assets and therefore the weighted percentage ought to push things to the higher side, that's not necessarily being applied to fix what we've got out there in the ground.
Well, where I'm headed with this, Jimmy, is that we're getting significant funding from our community. And as a community looks at this, I'm not sure this would be a convincing story that what we're doing is responding to the need. You follow what I'm saying?
I do, but again, you just pointed out that the community is paying funds. We have restrictions on those funds. It's what we can do with them, which are dictated by the budgets that are prepared and
Exactly.
approved by this commission.
Exactly.
The monies are being spent where we can, when we can. I can go back and look at the exact nature of how all the capital funds have been spent for the last several years, but I don't see that we've been wasting the funds. And I
Yeah,
don't
and I
know
don't-
that it's making.
Right, and I don't mean to imply that we've not properly invested. Where I'm headed with this is, we had a scorecard a few years ago, and now we got another one. And of course, there's some disparity between a subjective scorecard and one that has some specific objectives and evaluation. But to the average person that might review this, they're saying, well, what are we doing if
Who came
Okay,
up with
so-
the criteria that limited to just the distribution system and just to the collection and conveyance?
This came right out of the Four Waters study.
Well, we've kind of progressed beyond that to where now we know the capacity of every lift station basin.
Oh, we can
Okay.
do that, but that's
Okay.
not what I was asked for.
This
Okay,
this
that-
is just for the physical condition of all of the infrastructure we have in the system. And we wanted staff just to grade it, because like we've talked about, some money has been put toward improving the system. A lot of money has been spent toward increasing the capacity.
A lot.
Now, since the master plan was done, we don't have any areas that don't have capacity, available capacity to meet needs. Whereas when the master plan was done, there was substantial areas with that. So that's where the majority of money, and that's what Jimmy was saying, where the majority of the money's been spent. If you actually go through here, though, and a C grade is average. So let's face it, when you have facilities that are 40 and 50 years old, if you have a C grade, that's not a bad grade.
Right. I agree.
But if you look at the Academy Creek, okay, we're gonna be spending $10 million upgrading
Right away.
the Academy Creek system
away.
already.
Right.
I mean, that's gonna be done starting this year, including the treatment plant. And we also just got a report on the Whitlock Avenue sewer that was a lot better than we thought it was gonna be.
Yeah.
Some people thought that we were gonna have to replace the whole line, and now we're not gonna have to do anything to it except rehab some manholes. So these are some things, and as we get through the smoke testing on St. Simon's Island, I think we're gonna find that the conveyance system there might not be as bad as what was anticipated. But we'll see.
Yeah.
And what we need to do, like some of us has talked about today, is now we have a map, we got a map of the system, and we're trying to find out exactly where the weak areas are, so we can itemize, so we can give them priority. And so we have a good priority of what we need to be doing over the next 5 to 10 years. And I think with, and plus we want to extend the service if possible to some of those areas that have not been sewered.
Well, the big thing though, with the smoke testing, Chairman, you're right. Knowing that where the problems are, it still gets down to, and I hear, with all due respect, Commissioner Duncan, we are spending money, but it's not the kind of money it takes to substantially move the needle on some of the problems we've got out there. It just takes time at the rate we're going, and it's not an overnight thing.
And I'm not expecting a remarkable change. It's just where I'd like for us to be able to say is, okay, one of these major assets has got a letter D, but we have solutions in place. It's either in the form of an RFP, or we have bids that we're considering, or it's under construction, and we know it's going to move the needle on that asset. Okay.
Or at least allow us to know what to do to move it.
That's right. And after all, we're serving the community. We've
Right.
gotten past the bottlenecks, if you will, in the last few years on being able to expand and serve people coming to live in our community. It's just that, in my view, this doesn't reflect the investments that have been made over time. That's what
Yeah,
But if you look at the items that we have, and you look at where any one of the staff had below a C average, okay, on D, on the distribution system, right now we got the L Street project ongoing, we got the Magnolia Park project ongoing. So, I mean, that's gonna improve the distribution systems there.
Exactly. That's my whole
then-
point, is we have
Then we
solutions
have-
in place for those major
If you go down on
arteries.
the distribution system on St. Simon's, we just got through talking about what we're gonna be doing over in Sea Palms. That's one thing right there. And then come on down on the Academy Creek treatment system. I mean, obviously, we just talked about the G loan and the improvements we'll be making there.
I fully expect a substantial shift in the needle on the 2 treatment plants.
And the Dunbar Creek, we just talked about the plant, not only that, but that's a C, but also the collection system with the smoke testing.
Yep.
So
And we've got,
everything that
if,
has a D is being, we're doing something to address that.
well, even the Academy Creek collection system will be, if my push works out, I hope to be just here in another couple months pushing a RFP back to you guys for a flow monitoring and smoke testing in the Brunswick area,
Right.
which is our other, older assets.
And obviously, Lift Station 4003, we've already awarded a
Yeah, it's
contract on that. So, okay, well, that's good. Good information. Project report?
very little changed. I spoke with Todd. Very little changed from the previous report that was given at the last commission meeting.
Let me broaden that. In regards to very little change, the projects that are under construction are progressing as expected. So they wouldn't necessarily change status from one status to another one because those are ongoing construction.
Right.
So I just wanted to be sure I understood it. In regards to very little change, it's not stagnant. It just means that those projects continue as expected.
Right.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't say that. You're
Just a
correct.
clarification
Yeah,
for me.
Yeah, you're correct.
Okay, thank you.
We've awarded the Academy Creek Oxygen System rehab, right? We've awarded the construction of that.
They're out there working.
They're out there working, okay.
Yeah. They made pretty good progress so far.
And is the oxygen tanks coming in, or is that?
They're on the way. I know they've got the old one down now. It's just a matter of when the other one comes in. Well, actually, the foundations they were forming up the foundations this week. So, if they can get that, I don't know if they've got them poured or not, but, we've got a little cure time involved.
At the next facilities meeting, can you provide us some photographs of some of that construction that's going on some of
Yeah,
these projects.
I could have done it today, I just didn't really think about it.
And we
Be a good
had
thing
the
to share.
kickoff meeting on lift station 4003 upgrade.
Pictures?
We had the kickoff meeting on that yesterday, right?
Yesterday, yes, sir. That was the design meeting. What was the question about the 4003?
We had a kickoff meeting for the
We did, that was yesterday.
engineering firm.
It looks like that one's real straightforward.
Plant flows report.
Nothing significant I saw on the this month's DMR. I mean, this month's, DNR report. Less rain, things got back, flows came down, but nothing really. No compliance issues, just good steady operations.
Good to hear.
Is there a way to superimpose the BOD levels on these charts? Because that kind of.
Superimpose them, what do you mean? You mean on the graphs?
Uh-huh.
I believe it could. All right.
You know, what's interesting about the BOD,
Because it doesn't change.
it's pretty constant for all three plants. But Southport, we don't think we have any I down there. So,
I just, I think that if you kind of put that on the chart somehow, that would tell the story that it's all water from groundwater.
that's correct.
Graphical charts.
Moving on to Southport, the influent concentration for suspended solids, 376, and it's been averaging 145.
I can't explain why that would have jumped up like that. We didn't have a rain event, so there wasn't like a system, and our system's not old, so we don't have those kind of issues. I don't know why that TSS, I'll see what I can find out about the,
The good news is Academy Creek had 94% removal.
well within permit.
Dunbar had 98%, and Southport had roughly 98%.
We're well within permit.
Yeah. Okay, next is the map of projects not constructed.
Okay, yeah, and what this is, we've got the request was for which projects have designs, but we're not actively constructing. The Ridgewood, and maybe this is one that's come back to a time, and talking to Todd about it, he said that with, when we cross-connected the systems from the North Mainland back over to the stuff there at Canal, the city system there at Canal Crossing, the guys quickly saw that we started pulling hard in drying up the North Mainland. The North Mainland system is on Miocene wells, and I don't know if that's the issue, but apparently they push out at a better pressure than the folks on the other side, the wells on the other side and the system on the other side. And as a result, it's noticeable that they're working a lot harder to try to provide the capacity that's coming through and crossing over into the city system there at Canal Crossing. It may be time to look at putting in that tank there at the Ridgewood area to help mitigate that, is what Todd was saying. So the other projects,
Could we just put a pressure reducing valve there and do that?
we talked about that, and I asked for an analysis of what it would take to get it and, give us the specs. And I'm not sure that we ever got the results back. I'll double check.
Yeah, this shows the projects, pre-designed projects.
Yeah, that pre-design, and they,
There's some other projects on St. Simon's. There's a 12-inch sewer line that's coming down Ocean Boulevard that was designed in 2014 or something like that. Todd's familiar with that. And I think there's several other projects. The plan's on the shelf.
oh, I misunderstood. I didn't realize we had projects that were sitting out there. I was looking at the ones that were,
We've already done the engineering on it. The JWSC at one time wanted to have engineering done, but we've not started construction on. And I'd like to see those on a map.
I got you. My apologies.
Fit into our overall plan, because it's something that we might need to be addressing from a construction standpoint.
My apologies. I misunderstood. We'll get that out.
Well, part of the problem is we took an off-the-shelf project to do refurbishment of 2030 lift station. And we did an off-the-shelf 2032. And they had to be reworked because we couldn't do it the way they suggested, which on 2032 was an open cut along Sea Island Road. And we wound up basically mooring the whole thing
Yeah,
because we couldn't get DNR permits in a timely fashion.
yeah.
So a lot of the off-the-shelf from early 2000s, and may not be what we need to do now.
Yeah,
Thank you, Janice.
I just want to see what they were to, so we can evaluate
So,
if we're gonna be doing it.
I was,
Okay, what do we have here? And let's-
Okay, that is what Mr. McGinty sent regarding the insurance, and then he also has spoken, he called and emailed, but he has spoken with the underwriter, and the underwriter did agree with the 3% increase in values and no increase in the rates. Therefore, where I pointed the arrow to, that is for the property from Ace American, the 196,186, 199,186. And then up at the top of the liability package of 98,146.
So we're increasing the value 3%.
Of the property value, yes. But the rate,
Only went up 3%.
the rate is not going up,
The actual premium does increase.
right, by
Okay.
3% only, not by 6%.
Right. I can support this and moving it to the full commission tomorrow, so.
I second.
Okay, we're good then. That was a good response by our agent.
That's very good.
Anything else we need to discuss?
Thus, we covered the oddball items early.
What?
The 2 or 3 straggling issues, the CCTV work, did we talk about the Frederica? I sent out an email this morning about, we're doing the water main connection there at Frederica and
We're doing
Colonial.
that work.
We are.
We can do the bore and every, well, it's open cut though. We're gonna open cut it.
We are doing an open cut.
Yeah. Well, our staff's gonna be doing that work. Or we
No,
contracting that out?
we're contracting that out to the Southeast Pipe folks. I mean, not to the Southeast Pipe, to the paving company that's doing the work for the county.
Okay.
They also do that. So we're contracting it through them.
They're not doing the village work for the county, are they?
I'm not certain. I'd have to check. I can find out.
Is that the same paving company that's doing L Street too?
I'm not certain if they are.
I think it's a different one, Chairman, yeah.
What's going
East
on on
Coast is doing it.
2032?
East Coast, I'm not sure. Sir?
What's going on 2032? You remember we had, people in working with that house where we had all the problems, where we had, the cave-ins and all this other stuff, just to the north of 2032? And now I saw Systems and Pumping is digging up the ground again and is working in that area.
I'm not aware that wasn't aware of this.
Pump station across from Phoenix.
Yeah.
That's correct. It's more, it's across the street, yeah.
A couple crews in and out of there the last several
And
days.
I'd like to know, what are we doing back in there again?
I'll find out.
Janice, on the things that we've approved to be put on the agenda tomorrow for approval, are we gonna have those on the consent agenda, or are they gonna be just brought up and then we'll make a presentation? Is the intent to put them on the consent agenda?
We have not set up, the agenda has not been set up yet to have a consent agenda section and then an approval and then as well, a discussion. I'm waiting on some communication from the county clerk as to how she sets up her agenda and how all of that is addressed there.
It should be minimal, even if it's on the approval.
Right, I mean, I
Should
would
take-
think that there may be a few comments for the other commissioners, but
I think we can kind of mention, and Jimmy might have to add something to it if we
Yeah,
mess up on something, but we can bring it up, and then
I'll bring,
we got a motion and a second, hopefully you'll just fly through kinda.
so does Mr. McGinty, does he need to show up
Yes.
tomorrow for the insurance? Okay. So
I don't think there'll be any issues, but it will not hurt to have him on hand in case.
I don't know that he needs to make a
No,
presentation.
Just in case.
just in case.
Right, yeah, I agree.
So we're moving Wade Journey property insurance renewal and the USGS contract
Yes.
to commission.
And other thing was contingent on me getting you a map of the stuff
CCTV
downstream of the Saddlebrook for
Yes.
the 4105. That needs to be on there. And when
Now
we leave
that
out
would
of
You
here,
have
I'll
it
go.
back here today?
Harry was here this morning. I'll walk back there now.
Okay, I'll come.
Since after all, it is the Harry Patel option.
Nothing else, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Good meeting.
Let me walk back there right, Ben, if you get through in here, I'll be back there with them. Thank you, Matt Perlar and Lucas.
Janice, can I keep this overnight and just bring it back tomorrow?
Sure, yes, sir. If you just, bring it back tomorrow or the next commission meeting. It's
'Cause
totally
I'll
up
need
to
it
y'all.
to prepare for my report. Thank you for attending.
I'm going to meeting.
Come again, but bring food.